Washington offers a block. The blitz comes from the other side. DeQuell Jackson.
And now again, DeQuell Jackson.
You're listening to Believe in Colts with co-hosts Lawrence Owen and DeQuell Jackson, bringing you the latest and greatest about the shoe.
Brady, middle, intercepted by DeQuell Jackson. Play fake, Ryan, intercepted, picked off at the 5, touchdown DeQuell Jackson.
What's going on, Colts Nation? We are back, and DeQuell is still on hiatus due to, real life events taking care of keeping him away. We still wish him the best of luck, but we have another great guest today. I'd like to welcome in Kevin Bowen of 107.5.
Yes, sir.
Right? The Fan?
Yep.
Awesome. In case you guys don't follow, listen, know, if there's people out there that don't know who you are, which I can't believe that there wouldn't be, but there may be. Why don't you take a moment, give people a little bit of, tell people a little bit about yourself and where they can find you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Covered the Colts for about a decade now. Lawrence K. Bowen, 1070 on Twitter. Host a morning show here in Indianapolis. Like you said, 107.5 The Fan there from 7 to 10 a.m. every single morning with Jake Query alongside, and then a podcast, Kevin's Corner, which is strictly Colts. Do that about once a week. And it's been a while since we've chatted. I don't know, maybe training camp. So always enjoy hopping on with you, man. So thanks for asking me.
Yeah, last time we spoke was training camp. I'm sorry for not getting a hold of you, but
You're good.
Actually, I think I did DM you a little bit earlier on, right before the season started, when we were talking about DeQuell and I hosting the show. So
great get.
Yes, great. DeQuell's awesome. I think people who listen to the podcast think he's awesome too.
Top 5 quote, honestly, I would say in my time covering the Colts.
Really? What's that?
No, just in general, like top 5, like quote, not one individually, but yeah, I would say just the consistency
just to talk
and
to.
Yeah, I mean, after win or loss, you need someone who's going to stand up there and take it, and he did, and a variety of things. Obviously, I think his Cleveland background is great because he's seen it, at a different level than what we're used to here, covering this franchise. So, yeah, he's one of a kind.
Who doesn't like a little extra money? Well, if you're into gambling, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your basketball, football, baseball, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for this season and the next. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BLEAV50, to receive your bonus. Bet online, where the game starts. Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. We only have a short period of time today to get this podcast done. So we're going to jump right in. The Indianapolis Colts coming off of one Saturday primetime game, walking into another Saturday primetime game. They come off a really big emotional win against the Patriots, walking into Arizona this weekend against one of the best on the season in the NFC. They have lost a little bit as of recently. What are your thoughts on this Arizona Cardinals team that the Colts are walking into against?
Yeah, I mean, certainly what a difference a month and a half makes. Really, I think ever since that Green Bay game on Thursday night, they've just been a bit of a tailspin. And, for their fan base, it probably feels like a little bit of deja vu from what happened late last year for them. Injuries have played a big part, J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins, and just kind of several starters in and out of the lineup as well. And you look out west, or I should say in the NFC, it's so important to, yes, you want to win the division. You really want to avoid that 4-5 matchup because that 4-5, right now it'd be the Rams as the 5 seed, whereas you get into the 1, 2, or 3, obviously the 1, the 2 or the 3 seed, you're going to play like a Minnesota or a Saints team or an Eagles team, in round 1. And that's obviously the matchup you would want much more than, facing a Rams team or somebody like that. So at the start of the year, I love this matchup. Probably has lost a little bit of its luster, but I still am really looking forward. I think anytime you watch Kyler Murray, he's really, really fun to watch.
Absolutely. Speaking of Kyler Murray and that offense, oh my goodness, they are on a slide as we talked about, but I mean, they're still a really, really good offense, averaging over 370 yards a game, 255 through the air, and 121 on the ground. And plus, they score 27 points a game. So this Indianapolis Colts defense really does have its hands full, even without DeAndre Hopkins, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think if healthy, I think James Conner and um, what's his name, Chase Edmonds, really good duo there. I think different kind of complementary skill sets as well. And obviously, Kyler Murray is someone that can be extremely dynamic and extending plays. I asked Darius Leonard just before we started recording just the similarities about the rush plan with Murray versus the rush plan of a Lamar Jackson. The thing about Murray is when he gets out of that pocket, laterally, he is looking to throw. Jackson is looking to primarily make plays with his legs, and he's not afraid to, continue to try and make plays, even though he might take a hit or something like that. Whereas Murray, again, is more of extend to throw. And for the most part, he's probably looking to, get out of bounds, things like that. His body size, obviously, is much different. So I'm going to be fascinated to watch just that pass rush plan. The Colts executed it at times against dual threat quarterbacks like Josh Allen pretty well. But still, Murray is unique in that. And without Hopkins and Rondale Moore being a little bit banged up, I do think it's important for him, for Arizona's sake, to try and extend and create plays up front. So it'll be fun to watch that matchup and just kind of see where Arizona's at psyche-wise. A shorter week for them, traveling back, multiple time zones. How do they handle that? They need a win to get in, but obviously they still have a couple weeks left to clinch a spot. And, they probably don't even have to win another game. They could still get in with that. But there just seems to be more of the panic sense of urgency for them, whereas the Colts are in a boat of the sense of urgency is just to keep it going and try to continue to push towards the playoffs. Not really a panic mode at all here based off how well they've played over the past few months.
So I'm looking at the defense overall for the Arizona Cardinals, and it looks incredibly good. Actually, I'm looking at this. This can't be right. 210 yards passing allowed, and 112.8 yards rushing allowed, and they only give up 20 points a game. But then you go and look at their yards per carry they give up. It becomes really obvious that teams are playing from behind against them. They give up on the run because they give up 4.7 yards a carry. Is this a game that Jonathan Taylor could really kind of put in his back pocket if he needs to?
Boy, if he needs to have any more reasons to smile this week, I would say seeing that, 27th against the run yards per carry. And last week against Detroit, a guy by the name of Craig Reynolds, who sounds like a 1980s baseball player more than he does an NFL running back. He goes off for, what do you have? I think over 110 against Arizona. So, since the Watt injury, I think that's been a big one. Again, they've been a little bit banged up in the front seven this week. Isaiah Simmons, Jordan Phillips, one of their defensive tackles, showing up on the injury report as well. So, yes, this does have the makings of, similar to New England and probably worse than New England. You're going to have to commit a lot of resources to stop Jonathan Taylor in this rushing attack. It's not just going to be, Tampa Bay maybe feeling a little bit better about their front six or front seven, something like that. You're going to have to commit a lot. So I think that's kind of music to the ears to the Colts, seeing that. Again, they've been a little bit banged up as well at the corner position. I really like Budda Baker. Love his style and kind of how he plays. Vance Joseph is a guy that, has a good reputation as a defensive, minded coach, and similar to Matt Eberflus here, he handles that entire operation out there. But yes, on paper, from a rushing game standpoint, and certainly if you want to talk MVP, you want to talk national spotlight, the ability for Taylor to go off, you can check a whole lot of boxes on Saturday night.
Let's move to the passing game, because everyone who watched that game was not impressed with Carson Wentz in that game and the passing attack. 12 passes, 5 attempts, had 3 balls that legitimately could be intercepted. He had one that actually was. Is there any matchups through the air that you like against this Arizona Cardinals team?
Yeah, I'm curious. Robert Alford, their corner, one of their corners, has been a little bit banged up. They got Quincy Wilson's younger brother there, and When I think of him, was he throwing a towel or throwing a shoe back against LSU or something like that? College days. So the discipline there for him, I think it's something that maybe you can expose. But to your point about this passing offense, Lawrence, outside of the pass rush, it's the biggest concern for me moving forward. If you really look at the numbers, Frank Reich uses because you got to get away from fantasy numbers when you look at the passing offense. You got to look at the efficiency numbers.
Yeah.
And yards per attempt is a really key metric that Frank Reich uses. And the yards per attempt baseline that he likes to use is 7.5 for the yards per attempt. And if you look at this passing offense over the last 2 months, I want to say Carson has eclipsed that only twice. And a lot of those yards per attempt numbers have kind of hovered around 5, which is really, really small. That's worse than really Jacoby Brissett had. So again, no one is expecting 300-yard passing days when Taylor's going off for 150 or more, but you are expecting more efficiency, especially because theoretically teams should be committing more to Taylor. Therefore, you should have more favorable situations in the pass game. And some of it is on Carson, and some of it's certainly on, I think, a wide-out tight end core that's just not as dynamic as you need it to be. And outside of Michael Pittman, just really struggles for guys to win one-on-one matchups. So that is something I think to keep an eye on. Frank Reich was asked earlier in the week about, is there a point in the season where you're going to have Carson go win you a game? If you're going to have to get on a run in the playoffs, there probably is. Having said that, Lawrence, I mean, hell, just no one seems to be able to stop Taylor. So, until that happens, you don't need to put as much on the plate of Carson as maybe some teams would like to put on that plate. But I think that is when you're talking about potentially having to win 3 road playoff games to get on a run in a wide open AFC, your quarterback's going to have to play, and your passing offense is going to have to play at a higher level.
So going into this game last week against the Patriots crowded that line, had loaded boxes 48% of the time, if I remember correctly. Is that something that the Colts should worry about? Is that something that they should look to maybe try to adjust with offensive line, different personnel on the field, maybe spreading, having more of a spread offense? Or should they just look at it and go, you know what, Taylor's doing great against it. We'll just keep pounding it with, 21, 31 personnel or, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, certainly there's an element of what we just talked about. Can you take advantage of it with some of that passing offense to where, do you load up with a couple tight ends, but maybe you're still able to make some plays, out of that with some favorable matchups? That's not a guarantee, but I think that's something that you have to look into. But to your point, running it out of some 3 wide receiver sets, even Hines and Taylor on the field at the same time, that's something Frank's never been afraid to do. And like Pascal and Doolin and Pittman are all thought to be very good blocking wideouts. So I do think that's something that is wise to explore. Off the top of my head, I don't feel like they did a whole lot of that against New England. I know in general, Hilton didn't play too much in that game, just based off kind of his normal output there. So I'll be curious to see if that trend continues. But yeah, I think it's a good point you make up, because no matter who you play to close out the year, get used to the 8-man boxes. And yes, there's times where you've got to do things differently on your end. I also think there's times where you still got to run it at them. I mean, look at the last play. I mean, look at the 67-yard touchdown run. Did your O-line block it up enough? And I thought Kylan Granson had a nice block on the left side on that play. Did they give Taylor an opportunity to get 3 or 4 yards? Yes. They also gave Taylor enough space to put his foot in the ground and make 2 guys miss. And at the end of the day, you traded up with Jonathan Taylor for a reason. It's to make some guys miss. So there is that balance of like, yes, you want to go with your passing offense. You want to make some plays off that in favorable matchups. But at the same time, your best player still has to touch the ball a good amount, because he has the ability to make plays that, not every back, not many backs, certainly in this league, can do.
Well, a lot of teams in the NFL say that they want to win with all 3 phases of the game. The Indianapolis Colts do that. Their special teams have been absolutely phenomenal this year, and have been in recent years as well. But I mean, every week you expect to see some kind of fantastic play by the special teams, whether it's a block punt, whether it's pinning a team back on like the 1 yard line or a nice return, something of that nature. How much does this special teams help this Colts team win football games?
Yeah, I think it's a great point that you bring up, and obviously we're starting to see more praise. I think go to that unit, and rightfully so. I think Hard Knocks is helping out, and just the Bubba Ventrone story is a pretty cool story. Um, they've always controlled field position really well, but now they're taking it to another level. And just, I mean, when you block a punt and return for a touchdown, I don't know the stat, but I bet it's like you win over 85% of your games in the NFL. And like, sometimes I think that if you take out this play, what could happen? But like, just for argument's sake, let's do that. I mean, you take out that block punt on Saturday night, who knows what happens in that game? So I do feel like what your linebackers have done, in particular, the speeds of the world, the Zaire Franklin, Matthew Adams, Ashton Doolin. We're recording this before the Pro Bowl team is announced. To me, he should be a Pro Bowler. With what he's done this year on special teams. Brilliant job by Chris Ballard and Bubba Ventrone. Clearly, Frank Reich thinks highly of Bubba Ventrone. I mean, think about the 2 times Frank has had to miss for COVID and then a death in the family a few years ago. It's been Bubba Ventrone as the interim head coach. I think that says a lot about what they think about him as well. So when you're formulating a blueprint for January football, we forget about special teams. And the return game hasn't been, there's been times certainly where I think Rodgers has provided a little bit of a kick for you in the kick return. It's not like you've broken a bunch this year, but you've controlled field position. You've created opportunities to score points, and for the most part, you've kicked it fairly well. Which again, all of those are vitally important to getting it done in January.
Andrew Sendejo suffered a concussion in the game against the Patriots. Is there any news on him or who might be replacing him if he can't come back?
Yeah, we haven't gotten an update there. He missed the first practice of the week. Typically when you have a concussion, if you haven't practiced by day 2, that practice, you aren't going to play in that week's game. So George Odom was on the injury report for an illness, non-COVID, but he did practice on the first day of the week. So I would assume Odom would slide into that role next to Kari Willis.
And other guys with illnesses, obviously Rock Ya-Sin, dealing with an illness. Is there any update on that, or do you know?
Yeah, again, not non-COVID. We saw Bobby Okereke miss a couple days for an illness a few weeks ago. I mean, we've seen the whole gamut. Jordan Wilkins misses multiple weeks, so you don't get a lot of clarity on those, unfortunately. But Rock's key because like we talked about earlier, Arizona, I think ideally, wants to spread you out even without Hopkins and playing a lot of receivers. So you're probably gonna have to get into a little bit of your depth.
Should the Indianapolis Colts expect another start by Danny Pinter with Ryan Kelly still dealing with that awful situation that happened with him and his family?
Yeah, I don't know. I part of me is like, unfortunately, I don't know that, but part of me is like, I'm really not going to pry too deep on that. I asked Frank Reich yesterday, just out of curiosity, is Ryan back in the building? I thought Frank gave a really detailed answer about it and saying, give him as much time as possible. If he's back tomorrow, aka Wednesday, or if he's back next week, that's totally fine. So the thing about it this week is if you do go with Pinter this week, it would be, if again Ryan Kelly isn't back, it'd be 3 days of practice. Whereas last week, he only had that 1 day of practice when Ryan missed Thursday's final practice of the week.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, the outpour. I mean, once everybody found out really why he was having that situation, it's rough for anybody. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Ryan Kelly and his family. If by chance you happen to see or hear this.
Yeah.
So, well, we're coming in. Got about 6 minutes left because I said that we would cut this short about 25 minutes, and we're sitting at about 19. I want to know how do you think that this weekend will end up going?
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what type of Arizona team shows up. Again, we kind of laid it out earlier. On paper, they have an offense that I think tests some of the major weaknesses, or I guess some of the major question marks, I should say, about Kyler Murray and those wideouts can do a whole lot of damage to you and do a lot of off-script stuff, which I think is it's just hard. There's a reason Arizona is 10-4 and did win their first seven games of the season, something like that. So I am curious to see that. But at the same time, you look at what they've done against the run and what the Colts have done. Boy, you talk about playing keep away and limiting possessions. And to me, if you can jump on them early, been a staple, that could be the difference in the game. It seems like Arizona's teetering a little bit. Well, give them a reason to get on the ropes. Give them a reason to get a little chirpy on the sideline with each other. I think if you do that, now all of a sudden, they might break a little bit easier than some other teams would, or break if they're playing from ahead or if they feel like they're in the game a little bit more. So, I saw what's the line, like 1 or 2 points I think Arizona's favored by. I was a little surprised by that. Obviously, the home field is worth 3 points, so Vegas thinks the Colts are the better team. But I would be surprised if the Colts blew Arizona out. I still think it's going to be a pretty competitive game. And if you're a Colts fan and you're kind of looking at these final 3 games, certainly with the division still on the line, you want to win out. But really, the game, if you had to pick one game to definitely get over the next 3 weeks, it'd be the Raiders game, with them winning the other night. So I still think you win 2, you're definitely going to get in, and if you win 1, some things could fall your way. So I think Cleveland losing the other night was important for you.
Real quick, I had a question on Twitter. I thought I'd bring it up to you. I brought it up earlier to Holder on the last episode, Stephen Holder. And what do you think the chances are that the Titans could end up losing enough and the Colts winning out to be able to take the AFC South?
It's funny, Lawrence. I guess I'll throw this to you. You think better chance the Titans go 1-2 or the Colts go 3-0 here down the stretch? Titans have got the 49ers, Dolphins, Texans.
I think it's the Colts have. I think that's better that I think there's a better chance the Colts go 3-0 with their schedule they have left. I mean, the toughest game, really, in my opinion, is this Saturday against the Cardinals. The Raiders are up and down, and they've dealt with so much, drama over the season, and the Jaguars are the Jaguars. The Titans are expected to get some of their guys back, right?
Yeah.
And
AJ Brown, really, I think, is coming off IR maybe for Thursday night. So yeah, Thursday seems like such a big game. If you're going to look at the final 3 for them, 49ers, Dolphins, Texans, it kind of goes in order, I think, of difficulty. The hardest one's the 49ers. Then they'd have 10 days to get ready for the Dolphins. And then they're going to have the Texans the final week of the year. So, man, they are falling apart, but I got to think they win 2 of their 3. I'm not sold on Miami. I get Miami's gone on this big run, but I'm not sold on them. So I'm still probably in kind of the last one to like really focus on the division camp. I'm still more of kind of locked into the wild card. And, I know Irsay was tweeting a lot during Sunday of that Titans-Steelers game about that. I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a little greedy, to be like, punch the ticket and then go from there.
Well, he is the owner, so I mean, he wants to. He's always looking for best case scenarios, right?
He definitely wants that home playoff game, which I totally get that from a financial sense and all of that. So, tomorrow will be big though, because what tomorrow night would be is if they lose, now all of a sudden their backs are squarely against the wall. Now the Colts got to do their part because the magic number still is a combination of Colts losses and Titans wins. But I would say right now I'm putting it at like 70-30 that the Titans. Well, I'll probably put it like 80-20. Titans still win the division. But again, Thursday night, all of a sudden, if that doesn't go their way, now they're feeling it a whole lot more than they probably felt at any point over the last couple months.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking time out after the press conferences to come on and record with me so much. Take one moment again, tell people a little bit about yourself and where they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So 7 to 10 a.m. every morning right here in Indianapolis. Fans can check out my Twitter profile, KBowen1070. That'll direct you in the right kind of listening, stream, YouTube, podcast, all those things. Then I also have my own podcast called Kevin's Corner, which is a little bit more Colts-centric day in and day out. So, Lawrence, have a great Christmas. Happy New Year, man. Hope everything's going well in your world. Congrats again with Dequell and everything, and hopefully we can catch up in the offseason.
Absolutely. Same with you. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That was Kevin Bowen with me. And until next time, as usual, go Colts.